You take a sip. Something warm spreads through your chest. Your shoulders relax. The noise in your head gets a little quieter. It feels familiar. But here's the strange part. Thousands of years ago, your ancestors felt exactly the same thing. Not while drinking beer. Not while drinking wine. And definitely not while drinking anything you would find in a modern bar. Some of the alcoholic drinks they invented were made from horse milk. Others were brewed using wild herbs that may have blurred the line between reality and hallucination. And one of them was created by chewing food, spitting it into a bucket, and serving it to the entire community. The shocking part? Some people still drink it today. The story of ancient alcohol isn't really about getting drunk. It's about survival. It's about ritual. And it reveals something surprisingly deep about what it means to be human. Because humanity's relationship with alcohol began far earlier than most people realize. Long before cities. Long before farming. Long before written history itself. Imagine a hot afternoon in Africa roughly 10 million years ago. A piece of fruit has fallen from a tree. It splits open on the ground and begins to ferment under the sun. A primate approaches. The smell is unusual. The fruit is softer than normal. But it is also sweeter. The animal eats it. And somewhere deep inside its brain, a reward system activates. Scientists now believe this may have been one of the earliest chapters in humanity's relationship with alcohol. Research published in 2015 showed that a genetic mutation allowing primates to process ethanol more efficiently appeared roughly 10 million years ago. In other words, your ancestors evolved the ability to handle alcohol long before humans existed. Your body carries traces of that ancient adaptation even today. But recognizing fermented food is one thing. Creating alcohol deliberately is something else entirely. So when did humans first start making it? The oldest confirmed fermented beverage ever discovered comes from Jiahu, China, around 9,000 years ago. Archaeologists analyzed residues inside ancient pottery and found evidence of a carefully crafted drink made from rice, honey, fruit, and wild grapes. This wasn't an accident. Someone intentionally combined ingredients, waited for fermentation, and created a drink that altered how people felt. It may have been one of humanity's earliest recipes. But things quickly became much stranger. Because the most fascinating alcoholic drinks in history weren't made in breweries. They were made using creativity, observation, and sometimes methods that sound completely unbelievable today. Take chicha. For thousands of years in the Andes Mountains of South America, communities brewed a ceremonial alcoholic drink from maize. But there was a problem. Corn starch doesn't naturally ferment very well. So they discovered a solution. Women would chew dried maize until it became soft. Then they would spit it into a communal vessel. Human saliva contains an enzyme called amylase, which breaks starches into sugars that yeast can ferment. Without realizing it, these communities had discovered a form of biochemical engineering. The mixture was left to ferment. The result was chicha. A mildly alcoholic drink consumed during festivals, ceremonies, agricultural rituals, and community gatherings. To modern ears, the process sounds shocking. To ancient communities, it was simply practical chemistry. And yes, in parts of Peru and Bolivia, traditional chicha is still produced this way today. But it gets even stranger. Travel north to ancient Scandinavia. Archaeologists studying residue from Bronze Age drinking vessels discovered evidence of incredibly complex fermented beverages. These weren't simple beers. They were mixtures of grain, honey, berries, juniper, bog myrtle, yarrow, and other local plants. Some of these ingredients may have had psychoactive effects. The drinks were likely consumed during rituals designed to connect participants with the spirit world. One famous example comes from the burial of the Egged girl in Denmark, a young woman buried more than 3,300 years ago. Her grave contained traces of exactly this kind of fermented mixture. Whatever these drinks represented, they were important enough to accompany someone into the afterlife. And that's a pattern we see again and again. Across ancient cultures separated by oceans and continents, alcohol wasn't just a recreational drink. It was a tool. A bridge. A way of entering a different state of mind. In many societies, alcohol was medicine. It was ritual technology. Sometimes, it was even infrastructure. Ancient Egypt offers a perfect example. When most people imagine pyramid builders, they picture exhausted workers hauling stone blocks under the desert sun. What they don't imagine is how much beer those workers consumed. Beer was a daily ration. Workers received it as payment. But ancient Egyptian beer wasn't like modern beer. It was thick. Cloudy. Nutritious. Closer to liquid bread than anything served in a modern pub. And in a world without refrigeration or large-scale water treatment, it was often safer than drinking untreated water. The fermentation process reduced harmful microbes and helped prevent disease. Beer wasn't simply a luxury. It helped entire communities function. Yet even Egyptian beer looks ordinary compared to what came next. Because one of the oldest alcoholic drinks in the world begins with a horse. Specifically, horse milk. Across the Eurasian steppe, nomadic cultures developed a drink called kumis. The process begins by collecting milk from maize. The milk is placed into containers and repeatedly churned until naturally occurring bacteria and wild yeasts begin fermentation. The result is slightly fizzy, sour, mildly alcoholic, and unlike almost anything consumed in the modern West. Evidence suggests people have been making kumis for at least 5,500 years. For steppe cultures, it wasn't a novelty. It was a survival resource. It provided calories. It lasted longer than fresh milk. And it became deeply woven into social and ceremonial life. Generations of nomadic peoples drank it. Even the armies of Genghis Khan are believed to have carried fermented mare's milk during campaigns across Eurasia. What makes all of these drinks remarkable isn't just their ingredients. It's what they reveal about the human mind. None of these people had laboratories. None had chemistry textbooks. None understood microorganisms. Yet they repeatedly discovered fermentation. Again and again. On different continents. In different environments. Using completely different materials. Fruit. Honey. Grain. Milk. Roots. Berries. Humans observed nature. Noticed patterns. Experimented. And transformed ordinary ingredients into something capable of changing behavior, strengthening social bonds, and creating shared experiences. Which brings us to the most important truth about ancient alcohol. The drink itself was rarely the point. The gathering was. Anthropologists studying drinking traditions across cultures have found that communal drinking often strengthens trust, reduces anxiety, and increases social bonding. For much of human history, sharing a fermented drink served a role similar to grooming among primates. It reinforced relationships. Created alliances. Helped communities feel united. Your ancestors didn't drink because they were reckless. They drank because they were social animals trying to survive an unpredictable world. A world filled with droughts. Predators. Disease. War. And uncertainty. Gathering around a shared vessel helped people feel connected. And connection has always been one of humanity's most powerful survival tools. So the next time you take a sip and feel that familiar warmth spreading through your chest, remember this. You're not participating in a modern habit. You're continuing a story that stretches back millions of years. A story that began with fermented fruit on the forest floor. Passed through ancient villages in China. Through mountain communities in the Andes. Through Bronze Age rituals in Northern Europe. Through Egyptian breweries and nomadic horse camps on the Eurasian steppe. Civilizations rose and fell. Languages disappeared. Entire cultures vanished. Yet the impulse remained. To gather. To share. To celebrate. To connect. And every time humans discovered a new way to ferment the world around them, they weren't just creating alcohol. They were creating community. And that may be the oldest recipe humanity ever invented.